welcome back to One on One with Mr. U. Of course, I'm your host, Mr. U. In studio with us, Executive Empowerment Coach Varuschka Nagesar. How are you, Varuschka?
Hey, Yusuf, I'm really good, thanks. How are you?
Fantastic. Good to see you. Good to have you here with us. We had a fantastic pre-interview chat, so there's a lot I want to get into. I got a lot of questions. How I get them all into a 30-minute box. I don't know how we're going to pull it off, but we'll do our best. Yes. But customarily, I always ask our guests to come in and kind of share a little bit about their childhood and their upbringing. What would you say is a key factor in getting you from here to there? I should say from there to here, more accurately. So go ahead and share, please.
And there meaning where I was born to here where I'm sitting today.
Yeah. In life.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Well, my story is an easy one to describe because I have physically moved. So I was born and brought up in South Africa, and that's where I studied and practiced law initially. And then I was fortunate enough to be able to travel the world because of work. I chose to move into the corporate world. And physically, I then ended up moving to the UK. So I'm sitting in London, United Kingdom at the moment.
Okay. I love it. I love it. What would you say is a key factor in the person that you grew up being to who you are right now? Do you see a place where it kind of makes sense?
Yeah, there's a lot of key factors. I think one of which I could touch on is a theme in my life anyway, is that growing up, my parents moved around a few times. So I lived in a few different towns in the city that I grew up in. And then I moved around after university and worked in different cities, as well as moved many times throughout my career. So I think an important factor is the freedom of movement and the things that you get to learn about people and places and yourself as you move around. And I sort of love that. I love that freedom of movement and freedom of being able to learn about other people, but also to learn to be yourself eventually.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. We talked about it a little bit in our pre-interview, but where does your name come from? It's really pretty. Where's your name come from?
Sure. So the story behind my name is that my mom saw the name and she really liked it. And it was actually the name of a German model at the time. However, I am not German, nor am I Russian, because some people think that the name sounds like it. I'm actually of Indian heritage, although I was born and brought up in South Africa. And so it was a very somewhat common name that they chose, albeit mine is spelled differently.
Okay, no, I love this. So we talked a little bit about your travels from South Africa to London. I told you I had many friends that are here in the States. Some are farming, some are teachers, some are ministers of some sort. So I hear a lot of stories about South Africa. Where do you think your sense of justice comes from?
I was born at a time that was just after apartheid and or at the cusp of it. So whilst I couldn't really say that I've had too many direct experiences about the racial divisions, I did grow up at a time that was full of hope. And it was when the change came and I saw Nelson Mandela come out of prison and I chose to study law. So I went to law school and we had a new constitution. And so as a very bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, young, enthusiastic wannabe lawyer, I was very hopeful. And so I was coming from a perspective of a South Africa that was at a difficult time, but also at the cusp of greatness and something really positive that moving forward that it was going to do. And it changed the world, right? It put us on the map in a good way, not in a bad way. And so the country that I know and the place that I've been and what was so significant about that time is that as much as it has a difficult history, it shaped who I was going to become and how I saw the world.
No, I love this. And I always try not to ask deep questions, but sometimes I can't help it.
Sure.
There's clear complexities in the human spirit, and because you're empowering people in career transitions or in their careers and trying to help them grow in their full leadership potential and such like that. If you heard somebody who was in a situation where trying to go in a career, but they're being held back because of factors outside of their skills or outside of what they can accomplish. It's more about who they are and what they look like. What is Varuschka's first reaction to that, based on what you experienced and what you saw? How do you, even if they never know how you're going to feel? So, and it's just between you and I. Nobody else has to.
Yeah.
What's your initial reaction?
Sure. Yeah. Well, you touch on something really important, right? Because as a coach, you can't bring your feelings, your reactions, or your beliefs into that conversation. You know, you're holding space for your client. You allowing them to learn. You allowing them to find the answer. But yes, under the surface, there will be a reaction, and probably it will start with a bit of anger and a sense of how unfair that would be, and how is it possible? These are the things that would go through my head: is how is it possible that this is still happening in this day and age? We've learned so much. There's so much information out there. There's so much healing going on. There's so many bad things happening in the world, but there's so many good things happening in the world. And how is it that we haven't moved on from that, just what someone looks like or the color of their skin? How is it that we're still challenging ourselves on that aspect?
Yes, I can't answer that, but that could be my first reaction too. I love that you were transparent enough to share that. Thank you for doing that. You're helping people with career transitions. When did you realize that you had to pivot in your career? Was there a point where you're like, uh-oh, it's time to make a change?
Right. So remember I was talking about how much I've moved around?
Yeah.
And so with every move came some form of a pivot. And some of those were because of studies, but most of it was because of work. And so when I knew that I needed to make a change or a career pivot, it was more about each experience was a stepping stone to the next one. And I wanted to learn as much as I could about the subject matter in that particular job. I wanted to learn about people, and I wanted to learn about myself. And it just so happens that whenever it was time to pivot, whenever it was time to change in each of those career moves, and then I'll talk about the coaching as well, is that I got this feeling like, oh, I think I've gotten what I need out of this, or that sense of I'm getting too comfortable, or something doesn't feel right. I don't feel great in this environment. So it was sort of that intuitive feeling, along with questioning, am I learning what I came here to learn? Am I doing what I came here to do? And it just so happens that life was such that I got offers which allowed me to make those pivots at the time. And I knew it was right, because then the next pivot challenged me even more to be a better version of what I was trying to become. I was learning more about myself, but also business and the world, and whatever that role brought. But the pivot to coaching was really about the last corporate role that I had. The circumstances were such that the culture, the management, everything you can think of challenged me in a way that made me question, am I in the right place? And is this where I want to continue? Is this the version of me that I want to be? Or is it something else? And the answer was, no, this is not the right environment for me. And this is not who I am. And this is not who I want to be. And once I made that decision to leave, I knew it was right, because it felt very peaceful.
It's really good. I love this. Now, I'm somebody who's moved around a lot, not only geographically. The numbers will blow your mind between how many times I actually physically moved from place to place. You think it was incredible for somebody not in the military.
Mm-hmm.
I've also done so in my careers as well. I think it's just part of the personality thing. I get what I think I need, and then I'm bored, ready to move on. Let's play a little word association, Varuschka. If I say the word alignment to you, which is the word that's really big for me right now, if I say the word alignment to you, tell me what you think about. Tell me what you feel when I say alignment.
The first word that came to mind was soul.
Oh, okay.
And the reason why that came to me is because in the last few years, especially in the last 2 years, but even more than that, probably pre-pandemic, I've been doing a lot of work on my own self-awareness and and a little bit of soul searching, if you will. And Seat of the Soul comes to mind by Gary Zukov. And what I've come to realize is to be able to feel confident about where you are in life and who you are, you need to understand you and to feel like you are doing what feels right. But how do I know what feels right? And so I worked backwards and I did the work, and I realized that if I understand who I am, so if I knew I use my core values as a filter for my daily decisions, because that's how I know if something sits right or doesn't sit right. Do I want to go spend time with that person, or do I want to spend time by myself? And so that's really helpful. But then it's also that voice and that gut feeling. When I've made a couple of career pivots or moves, on paper, it wouldn't make sense, but it just felt like the right thing to do. And when I say it wouldn't make sense, I mean, I didn't know all the variables. So it was a bit of a risk or a gamble, but not a bad one. And so being able to understand intuition and being able to understand how I could trust it was something that was important to me. And intuition is linked to the soul, which is why when you said alignment, I thought about soul, because I thought about that inner wisdom. And the core values is also something that comes from who you are and how you've been shaped by your environment, your family, your circumstances. So if I took the core values, if I took the intuition, and if I took just believing in myself, all of those things come from the inside. And the best way I could describe that was the soul.
No, I love that. It's beautiful. I want to start getting into some of the work that you've been doing. I can tell from my own research and what you share with me that you deal with a lot of women in different stages of their life, mid-career, some are established and they're thinking about changing out of a long-term career and pivoting to something brand new, people who are in their 40s and higher. And I want you to do this without putting any of your clients on blast, because I'm not trying to be incendiary here. I just want to get your honest thoughts as a coach, because it helps me, because I've been in the coaching space for over 25 years and I'm still learning some things. So I learn from you, and even as I learn from experience. What would you say, out of all those different types of people that you have to deal with, which is the one that you feel like, I don't know, challenging is the best word. I'm struggling to find a better word than that. Maybe the most challenging, the one where you have to do maybe some more work than in the other different types. Is there one that kind of stands out of all of those? And can you tell me why?
Yeah, I don't think they stand out because they're in a particular box or category. It can be difficult. I think what stood out for me was a cultural thing, because I do have a lot of clients also in South Africa. And depending on the environment that they grew up in, so probably, yeah, if they're in their late 40s, 50s, etc., it might be more challenging depending on when they grew up. What I found was, and without giving anything away, cultural conditioning sometimes leads to people pleasing. And what happens is for lack of a better phrase, we give away our power in certain parts of our life. For example, our families. We give too much, and it costs us who we are and our authenticity. And it's a price that we shouldn't even be paying, because nobody asks us to do that, but silently we do it. And so I found that some of my clients struggle with that, building the boundaries, because it's just that upbringing and that cultural environment, or the need to constantly explain without saying that they want something and it's okay to want that. It's self-preservation. It's not selfishness. And so it's that vocabulary, it's that thinking and that internal dialogue that they're having about, oh, can I do this for me? Is it okay to do that for me? And a lot of women struggle with that in general in different parts of their life, because of the, that nurturing side and that conditioning side give more than we take.
No, absolutely. As coaches, I believe, just a general statement, that we kind of coach a lot from our experiences. not just modules and worksheets and diagram. We coach from our experiences sometimes too, and the life lessons and the cautionary tales that we walk through. We try to share that so that they won't have to walk through it. I experienced this when I was doing personal and spiritual life coaching many years ago. I wonder if you experienced it too. At what point, especially with what you describe, people who are in South Africa who are in tough cultural and environmental situations, at what point or what would it take for you to say, you know what, maybe it's time for you to move? You move so much, and sometimes you didn't, you didn't have much of a choice. It was part of your job and everything. But at what point do you say, you know what, maybe it's just time? I've coached people who stayed in their hometowns for years and years, and you could obviously think about the challenges of that. Everybody there knew you when you were in diapers, and they already had prejudgments about you and your family. They felt like they knew the cap of who you would be, and anything beyond that was outside of what they could understand. And at some point, you have to tell folks, you know what, maybe it's just time for you to just move and relocate, start afresh. Is there ever a time or scenario where you feel like you have to have that conversation with a client?
I think that's a really tough one because, again, it's like we were saying before, we don't want to tell people what to do because then we're coloring it with our own biases and judgments.
But I mean, maybe
yeah.
Something to think about. No?
Something to think about. Absolutely. So options and scenarios and just role plays usually help a lot. So without actually telling them, it's more like, let's do this role play. What would it mean if you did this? And how would your life be if you were to move, for example? I've never felt the need to sort of force someone to do something like that. Most people, seem to be, well established in their lives and all of that. But when it comes to sort of answering your question, it's a change of environment rather, because people making big changes, I've come to realize that as easy as it was for me, some people don't see that as easy. They see it as very stressful, and they are comfortable where they are. And just as much as we like to move, and people may not understand that, some people need to be in their space. They need to be where they feel most safe and comfortable. But changing up the scenario, definitely. I sometimes I have the feeling I want to push someone in a particular direction because, you can see the answer, or you could see that would give them more insight. But that's when you have to catch yourself, right? And really be careful with the words you choose and the solutions you present. So it isn't your answer to the question, but them figuring out the answer for themselves.
So absolutely. I love that. I love your answer. I wasn't trying to force anybody to do anything. Don't get
I hear you.
I don't want to get me wrong. That's not what I do, but
I know.
I'm glad you understand.
Yeah.
Right. You've experienced what it means to be at the pinnacle of your career. What do you say to somebody who's actually in the chase right now, trying to get to where you've been? You had success, you had the influence, you had the impact. I would imagine you had the money as well. What would you say to somebody who's in the chase, is trying to get there, who perhaps may just want to get there because of what they imagine it would be like? What would you say to them?
I would say stop and ask yourself what you really want and why. Because your why is key to driving you to the next place that you need to be in. I truly believe that every move that I made and places that I was in is because I was clear about what I wanted at the time based on what I understood. And provided I did it with intention, I generally found it good. I found that I learned what I needed to learn, and it satisfied the need. But at the same time, you stop and you question whether you're getting what you need and whether you are in the right place. And you'll figure it out whether that move is worth it or not, and whether you're learning what you need. And sometimes you just have to be in a certain space because life is going to teach you something anyway.
You betcha. I'm sure there was a pivotal moment where you moved or you realized that it was time to get out of the corporate world and go into coaching. I remember where mine was. Can you recall what your pivotal moment was? Do you remember what it was?
Yes. I think, connecting the dots backwards, there'll always be multiple dots in multiple places. But
Sure.
it's the last dot when you stand in an office and you realize that, you know what, there was a time where I loved being in the office. I loved being around people. I loved doing the meetings, and I loved all of this traveling, and I loved all of that. But when you are being treated in a way that doesn't value who you are and is an environment that's taking away from who you're becoming, and you have to choose to either betray yourself or
Mm,
choose to step away from the environment because you can't change it single-handedly, that's when you know, yeah, it's time. I've gotten everything I needed out of this, and it's time for me to go do what I'm supposed to do.
very
And
good.
so, yeah, it's when I stood in an office in central London and I asked myself those questions. That's when I knew.
Yeah, that's when you knew it, huh?
Mm.
You've been able to experience so many diverse workplace cultures and you've just seen so many things. Is there a universal truth about leadership that you've seen?
Yes. And that's true or good leadership is really about people who act with authenticity, empathy, and intention, meaning they lead from a space that's both head and heart. I've seen leaders who, use their ego and come from a very self-motivating perspective, and with very high titles, of course, with little good impact. And yet I've seen people with not such high titles, or regardless of their title, they've led in a way that has had a very big impact on people. And it's because of their authenticity and their empathy. And they realize the influence that they have on the people around them. But they're also a role model because they can be themselves, and so that they can allow others to be themselves, even whilst they're making difficult decisions in difficult spaces. And sometimes they have to tell people things that they don't like to hear. But when you come from a place of authenticity, I think it's a little easier for people to believe it, because then you're not making them feel like they're not strong enough to understand the truth.
That makes a lot of sense. I like that. Thank you for sharing that. Uh,
Sure.
in your work, from what I'm seeing, it feels like you are helping people with breaking down some of those limiting mindsets and people who may not believe in themselves. What
Mhm.
have you been seeing in your work, and how do you handle that? You seem like you're pretty cool, calm, and collected. How do you help people, deal with these beliefs that kind of are limiting and depleting at the same time? How do you help them? What are you seeing?
Yeah, I think we have to be patient with people as well. It's like we were saying before, you can see the answer and you're like, I see so much potential. It's like, why do you think you're not good enough? And it'll be an overachiever who's sitting in front of me and says, oh, I'm not good enough. I have to go get this qualification and I can't do it. And I feel so silly. And you know
Wow.
that those things are not true. And so it can be quite challenging, and it requires holding space for them and then stopping to ask them, is that really true? And,
Hmm.
and allowing them the time to just think about it. It sounds super simple and a very generalized coaching technique. But the truth is, when people don't stop to actually ask themselves, is this actually true? It's because it's all that negative self-talk. And so it's a process. And I get frustrated sometimes because I know that I have to allow them to digest what they're saying to themselves, and then to look for the evidence to prove otherwise, and then to almost take the time to actually read it, let it sink in, and then believe it. And that takes time, and you have to just allow for it. But yes, I struggle with that one a lot, because I see potential. And so I want to tell them, but you're so amazing.
No, that's good. I mean, patience is definitely a virtue, especially in this kind of business. So I totally get that. Are you able to share an example of somebody who has been changed from out of that mindset? You don't have to go into anything that's going to break confidentiality, of course, but just do you have an example that you can share about somebody who had limiting beliefs when they started with you, and they're on the other side of that mountain, if you will?
Yeah. I can sort of generalize the
Yeah,
problem and the
that's fine.
solution.
That's fine.
And with coaching, sometimes it's really after all of the different sessions when you get the feedback later on, once they start practicing it in life, that you realize that it worked. And I did have a client who is similar to what I was talking about before, is giving away that power in certain parts of their life and not realizing that they were doing that. And all it required was setting some new boundaries, but to have a mindset shift that I am just as important as every other person in my family, as an example.
Wow. Okay.
And it's okay for me to ask for help. And it's also okay to say no sometimes, especially especially when they are sort of the eldest in a family or something like that. And despite the fact they are so successful at their careers, etc., other parts of our life we overcompensate because somewhere else we are either underperforming or we're letting ourselves down. And so we worked on that particular issue and how it's not happening in the work environment, but it's happening in the family environment. And we looked at how we could mirror the behaviors and the self-belief and the confidence in the work environment into the family environment. And funny enough, it started to work, and it just it changed the whole perspective and just the confidence in being able to manage those relationships without losing them.
Wow.
And that was important.
Well, that is important. Okay. I only have a few more questions left. These may be the toughest ones I ask you all day. So I'll give you adequate time to think about each one. One of them you're already aware of. You should be prepared for that one, but the other ones, perhaps not. There are 3 areas that you specialize in.
Mm-hmm.
I've been doing a little research on you, plus what we talked about in our pre-interview conversation. I'm just wondering how these 3 areas. Let me just ask the question. Okay, so you deal with helping people with. You have skills in negotiation,
Mm-hmm.
strategic thinking, and problem solving. Those are the kind of things that you put on a resume, and they look great. Oh, they got negotiation skills. They got thinking skills, problem solving skills. This person is ideal for an upper management position. I've been here. That's why I get it. I put it on resumes.
Mm-hmm.
I won't speak by myself this time. I want to hear from you. How do you manage those skills when it comes to relationships? So many folks have those skills and they try to apply them in relationships and they fail in the relationship because they're trying to manage, they're trying to use negotiation to maybe perhaps get what they want, or they're trying to overthink situations and rather than kind of feel what's going on in the relationship, or they're trying to solve problems that they shouldn't be trying to solve. They should be just listening. You get what I'm saying? Can you see the parallels here? Tell me how you deal with the fact that you're proficient in those areas, but knowing when there may be not a place for them in relationships. If that makes sense, I hope it makes sense. It's all inside my head coming out.
I think I understand what you're saying. The gist of it is, how do you use all of those skills in relationship management? Is that what you're saying? In everyday relationships?
In the right ways, because you can
In the
use
right ways, yes.
in ways that will be detrimental to a relationship. Yeah. Go ahead.
So in other words, how do you use it without it being detrimental?
Correct. Absolutely.
Right? Yeah.
See?
So negotiation skills, problem solving, all of those are skills, techniques, strategies in life, right? Relationship management and people, whether it's your personal relationships, your work relationships, or someone you're going to deal with in a store, those are human beings. They have emotions. And this might not be new news, but people buy with emotion, even in corporates, even in business, right?
Absolutely.
And so if we understand how people work, and if we use the skills that we have, which, sometimes it's going to be patience, sometimes it's going to be empathy, sometimes it's going to be just being the person who's listening really carefully, watching the body language to decide how to use any one of those skills and any of those strategies you need to be able to get to the objective. So if I'm negotiating I'm going to buy something in a store. If I want to negotiate with the person the price of it, I was like, oh, how much is that? And they'll tell me, and I'll be like, oh, but last week when I came in, they gave me an X number of discount because, I'm a regular customer and all of that. Is that not still applicable? And, you'll do it with a smile, and you'll ask as if you're just sort of checking rather than being demanding and saying, oh, I'm a regular customer. Why wouldn't you give me my discount? Don't you know who I am? See, very two different ways, right? So when you walk around with the ego, it doesn't quite serve us as well as if we walk around with the, empathy, and I'm finding out it would be really lovely if you did that. I'm not going to punish you if you didn't, but it would be really nice. Chances are you'd probably get your discount. The same happens with personal relationships, right? And often romantic relationships or family relationships, we tend to be more biased in one way or the other. Sometimes we're going to let people get away with things, right? Or sometimes we have to negotiate because they're like, oh, well, we watched that movie last week and that was the one you chose. So isn't it my turn this week, right? So it's things like that. So those types of skills, those strategies can definitely help you, but you've got to do it in a way that reads the person that you're speaking with, that reads the room, the energy, the body language, the vibe. But at the same time, we have to know ourselves, right? Because there are times where you're going to have a trigger. And if that person's going to trigger you, it's definitely not going to go the way you want it to go. So you got to know your triggers too.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. All right. This is our penultimate question for today. As a coach, and I learned this recently, which is something I should have known for all the years I've been coaching. I have not. I'm a little bit ashamed, but I didn't know this, that coaches actually need coaches. It never crossed my mind. I feel like we were just helping people and nobody was helping us because that's the situation that I was in personally. I was coaching people and didn't have anybody coaching me. What do you need personally from a coach yourself as being a coach?
Right. First, no shame in that. We learn new things every day. And the only reason why I knew coaches need coaches is because of my own coaching school and how supportive they were. And, but I always feel like we can learn from each other. So it was a no-brainer for me to think that coaches need coaches. And what I need at the moment and what I'm using a coach for is business. To go out on my own and to be an entrepreneur and understand how business works, I realized that it's going to be a steeper learning curve than when I was in a corporate surrounded by lots of support structure and unlimited resources. So I'm using a coach for business.
No, that makes total sense. Thank you for clarifying that for me. Before I ask the last question, I want you to make sure you're ready to kind of take the last 2 minutes of our show to speak to the people, whether they be female entrepreneurs or just listeners in general, how you want to encourage them in moving forward, breaking through barriers and limiting mindsets and transitions and such, and then let people know where they can find your work, where they can find you on social media. But the last question for today, before you get there, last question for today is our CMV question. We talked about it in advance, so you'll be ready to kind of give it some thought. Career, mission, and vocation question. It's not to diminish the incredible work you've done, because you've done plenty, and you served a lot of people. But theoretically and temporarily, I'm wiping the slate clean of all the work you've done from hobbies to career, mission, vocation. What do you think on September 17th in 2025? What is Varuschka doing with her life right now, you think? You can't use what you've already done now, so you got to think a little bit more broad than that. What do you think you're doing right now?
If you wipe the slate clean, and if I had the knowledge to do whatever I want to do,
yes,
be an entrepreneur, be a very powerful, successful businesswoman in multiple streams. It's something I've always been curious about. It's something that challenges me. It's the newest challenge that I have. And the reason I say this is because I see the power and the influence and the value in it, and then you can reach more people with what you can do. And so it would give me more freedom to do the things I want to do.
I love that. More freedom than you're seeing right now.
Yes.
Wow. I love that. All right. After we get off, after we close the show out, don't leave. I got to share something with you real quick. But Here's your floor. Last 2 minutes of the show. You can encourage people however you want to. Also, let them know where they can find you and your work. Go ahead.
Sure. Um, everything is within your power, and the power is within you. And that's a saying by Janice Trackman. And I truly believe that. I started empowerment coaching and executive coaching specifically because of the environments that I was in and because of my own experiences. But I see the potential that women have and what's holding them back. And whilst we can share easy steps and methods, etc., to overcoming these challenges, we all need help to be able to overcome them. And it's not an overnight success. It takes time. But do it with intention and believe in yourself, because you can do it. And whether you do it with a coach, whether you do it with a mentor, whether you do it with a friend, these things that you do for yourself, no one can take away from you. It's invaluable. And once you learn it, you'll never lose it. And it comes from the inside out. You'll never need the external validation to be able to do those things for yourself ever again. So I highly encourage you to continue to empower yourself and do whatever you're doing to achieve that. And you can find me on LinkedIn, and my name is on the screen, or you can find me on my website, which is www.Varuschka Nagesar, again, the spelling's on the screen.com.
Thank you very much, Varuschka. It's been a fantastic conversation. Hang on, I have to be closed out for a little bit, but if you're watching and you're listening, this episode is live, so it's on all the social media platforms except for Instagram. We take care of that one on the back end. And in less than an hour, we'll be on all the listening platforms: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Pandora, etc. We'll be out there. But thank you, Varuschka, for your time in doing this today. It's been a pleasure get to know you better and hear more of your story. Thank you for doing this.
Likewise. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you. All right, hold on.